this video, I'm going to walk you step by step through the simple bifold wallet pattern from your pattern that's printed off to our final step of a completed bifold wallet. Step number one, I'm actually taking this pattern that I print off and transferred that to a heavier cardstock paper. This works really good for pattern paper. So now I have my patterns that are movable around here. Okay, the directions, just as it's printed out right on your sheet there. We have our bigger solid piece with no cutouts. This is going to be your outside shell. We're just going to cut one of these out of 8-9 ounce leather is what I've used here. And this has got a nice smooth texture on the back there. It's the flesh side, but it's not super rough because that is going to be the interior of the wallet. We're not actually going to line the interior of that wallet. Okay, have that pattern laid down. I like to use a scratch awl, and we can mark that pattern out. That's why I like having the heavier cardstock as opposed to just cutting my paper out. This allows me to trace right around on that pattern there. Leaves us a mark to follow with as we cut. Okay, so we need one piece like that. Next, I'm going to get a lighter leather. This is my veg tan as well, but this is a 3/4 ounce. Now we have the bill pocket. Now this is our one with those notches out there. And you can see I've just transferred the same lines as we have on your paper. Just show the stitch line on that interior pocket. But we need one of these, so we can trace that out right there on your leather. Be careful to trace right in around where that cut is. Okay, we have that marked. We can see those lines run right around there. Next, we have our card pocket. This is going to be out of the same 3/4 ounce leather, but we're going to need two of these. Well, one for each side of the wallet. Okay. Now we're going to take our time, cut those out, make sure we stay on the line. If you need to, take your straight edge and you can line right back up on your line that you just scribed on there with your awl. We make sure we have good solid lines. The sizing of these patterns is very important, so make sure we stay on our lines. Now that our patterns are cut out, let's look to construct this liner in here. So I'm going to use my pattern, lay it right on a piece, but I'm going to slide that over a little bit so I can transfer these guidelines for the end of those pockets. Okay, I'm going to slide it over again so I can transfer right there at the end. Now taking my pocket pattern, I can lay that on there right where that's going to go. Can scribe a line down the back side, and I can also make a mark here just as a guideline for when I start gluing that, so I know how far up that pocket's going to come. I'm going to flip that over, put on my other guidelines here. I'm going to mark this back piece, mark that side that comes in, and then mark our tops. Okay, next we got to get our glue out. I'm just using barge contact cement is what's in my glue can. And on the back side of our pockets, I'm going to go around 3 sides, not up here where we are going to have that card slide in. Set that pocket aside, grab my other pocket, same thing on the back side here. Gluing just around the edge, roughly a 1/4 inch in. We want just enough to get enough for it to stick, but I don't want to glue in too far so that it cuts in on our pocket size. So we still need our card to be able to fit in there. Now on the front side of this liner piece where we have our guide marks marked in there, I'm going to go just around the edge where that pocket's going to lay in here. Let's stop that glue right in at that mark. Same thing just on the inside. So you can see right in where we made that mark is a guideline. I'm going to come and do the same thing on this other pocket. We've had a thin layer of glue on both sides. Now that that's kind of tacked up, ready to put down here, and lay that right in place where I want that on my liner. Okay, take the other pocket and do the same thing. All right, those are glued down in place. Now it's time to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch right around those same 3 sides of each pocket. Making sure we're staying right out next to the edge, leaving enough room so we don't come in too far and cut in to make that pocket to where it's too small to slide a card into. So we're going to stay out on the edge. We'll take that over there and get that stitched on. Now that we have those pockets stitched into our liner, I'm going to get my small edger here and go down and just edge top and bottom on this top edge of that bill pocket and down here at the bottom side within those 2 cuts while we can still get to it really easy. Again, this is a really small edger that I'm using. Just catching that edge just to take that little sharp corner off of it. This isn't something you necessarily have to do. It doesn't affect the function of the wallet. It's just going to bring that quality up a little bit in your overall project. Okay, now my liner, we're going to set that aside for a minute. Let's get your outer shell. This one here, I've gone through and used one of the tooling patterns, tooled this up, and put my finish on there. We have a natural antique finish on that. But now we're gonna take a look at this and make some guide marks on this for when we come back in and stitch that. So I'm gonna get my bill pocket pattern out again. I'm gonna lay this in on the top side, right up next to this edge here. I'm gonna put a little mark kind of right here at the edge of that. Okay, I'm gonna do that on that side, and I'm also gonna slide it down here because you'll notice this bill pocket is shorter than your outer shell. That's on purpose, and that's to allow for your fold when those 2 pieces fold together. Okay, I'm gonna put a mark there on this side. Now what that's marking is for my stitch groove, and this shows me where this stitch line is gonna be. That's gonna actually stitch that bill pocket in. So I'm gonna come with my stitch groove down on the end, and then I'm gonna turn the corner and come right to that dot that I just put in there. Now this pattern is designed for extremely simple construction. Bifolds can be tricky sometimes due to the fact that the inside pocket needs to be smaller than the outside pocket. That way when we open the wallet, you can see that difference in size. But it allows for when that folds shut, you don't get a big wrinkle in the center. That actually lines up really nice and lays in there even. Okay, now that we have those marked, I'm gonna turn that over and mark the same thing on the inside. Just gonna do that with my scratch awl. And what that's doing is marking for my glue line. For the sake of this video, I'm gonna actually take a pin so you can see it a little better. But we'll mark that there. I'm gonna slide this down to the other end and we'll mark that. Okay, now we're marked and ready to go for this bill pocket to come in and glue down there, as well as marked on this end. Before I glue that in, I'm gonna get my edger back out and edge this in between those two marks, because it's gonna be hard to get to that once you're all stitched down. Hard to get to that inside there. So I wanna get in there on that side, as well as on this top edge, and get that edged off. The inside there, and then the inside of our top edge. We'll get that edged. On the outside, I can go ahead and edge this off. This is a lot easier to edge when everything's laying flat and we don't have that liner in there. Okay, now we're ready to reach over here, get our glue can again. Now paying attention, when you flip this over, where those stitch lines are at that we just marked, down this end and right to our mark. Same thing, we're just gluing that edge in about 1/4 inch or so. Come down here to this other end, do the same thing. Right up to that mark, and then down across our end. Likewise, I'm going to grab our bill pocket back up, paying attention to just go down that bottom edge and up our side. Just a nice light layer here. Going to allow that to hold really well while we sew that. Okay, again, that's a light enough layer. Everything's tacked up, ready to go. I can turn that bill pocket back over. Come right into place. Making sure I'm all the way out on that edge. If we get that held in too far, when we stitch on the other side, we can miss our liner with those stitches. So make sure to get that out on the edge really well. Same thing out on the end. Held out there really good. With a light coat of that barge cement on both sides, that holds really well there. Now when we come to do this side, make sure you don't just reef this over here and pull that glue loose. Take a minute to kind of fold your wallet just a little bit so it's not putting so much pressure on this glue. Now we can come and line up those same two edges. Get down there on the bottom edge and then make sure you're all the way out on the end. If you've cut all your patterns out right and your leather, everything should line up really well there. And you'll notice it has a bow in there because our bill pocket is shorter than our outside. Again, that's going to allow for that nice fold. Now be careful not to just crank this in half, because depending on your finish, you're going to probably need to wet that down a little bit on the back side before you fold that, so you make sure you don't crack any finishes. But at this point, we can go over to the sewing machine again. We'll stitch right down where we have our stitch groove, going down the end and across the bottom just to that inside of that pocket. We'll skip over and stitch right down that line as well, the inside of that pocket. The reason there's this big hole and gap in here is to make this a simple construction. This distance to stitch down here is short enough that even with that bow, you can stitch this wallet on a flatbed machine. You do not have to have a cylinder arm or a post machine. You can sew this on a flatbed machine very easy and have plenty of room to get in there. That hole's also small enough that bills aren't going to fall down in there. You have enough room to fit a bill in there and have it stop on these edge points right there. So let's take that to the machine and get it sewed up. Now that we have that all stitched down, I can get my edger back out, come around on the inside of that liner, those corners where we just stitched, and we can edge those off. Now it's time to slick those edges. Your preferred method, however you'd like to slick your edges. I'm going to use a little bit of gum tragacanth. Here, we're just going to run right around our edges. And then with a piece of canvas, slick that off. We'll work our way around, catching all of our edges. Catch the bill pocket on there as well. Have that slicked off. Final step is going to be, we're going to want to fold that. Now again, like I said, it's a good idea to wet that down, especially depending on what finish you have going. But this is just some water. I'm going to go on the inside here, wet that fold down. And as I start that nice and easy, I'm going to watch for any cracking, make sure it's not cracking my finish. I can even wet just a little bit down on there. As I fold that, make sure my edges are lining up down the corners, and then I can get my crease put in there. Again, make sure my corners are set. Get that crease. You'll notice everything's going to line up really nice. No bunching down in your corner. Opens nice, shuts nice. Our bill pocket's open to fit bills in, and both of our card pockets. Going over just a couple of spots to watch for. These are going to be common mistakes with this pattern. One we talked about already when we were gluing, making sure you have that liner all the way out to your edge, so when we stitch through, you don't miss your liner with your stitches. And that's going to be the same whether you're stitching by hand or on a machine. Make sure that liner's all the way out to your edge. The other really common mistake is going to be where you place these card pockets. Make sure to refer back to your pattern and see that they're held off of the end. Okay, there's a small gap in the middle, but they're held off of that end. So make sure you transfer the line and bring that card pocket down to this bottom line where that attaches there, rather than running that pocket out to the end. If we were to run that pocket and glue it out next to this edge, you'd see when we make this stitch line on the end, you would actually stitch the top corners of that shut and you could not fit a card in. So those are two big things to watch for. Make sure your liner's out there all the way, and make sure those pockets are marked correctly so you're not all the way out to your ends there. There you have it. construction of a simple bifold wallet. The pattern for this, if you're interested, is in the description. If you're just catching this video and haven't got the pattern yet, and you want this construction pattern, it comes with both these sheets, your cutout patterns, as well as 2 tooling options, which are both going to tool out as such.